Well, we'd like to welcome Lee Turner, who's from Carrum Downs. Hi, Lee.
Hello.
How long have you had this Panther of yours?
47 years.
47 years. And what year is it?
53.
A 1953 Panther, rigid. So, where did you get it?
It was found on a farm property just out of Ballarat. My uncle found it, did it up, and then we gave it to my father. And I got it.
Beautiful. So, have you been to any other rallies on it?
No.
So, how long is this? Is the first rally?
This is the first rally.
Ah, unbelievable. Wow. So, have you got any other bikes in the shed? No, just this Panther? Well, we hope Lee has a really good rally, and thank you, Lee, and good riding. Here we have Rod Bailey, and he's from a place called Uradla, which is just out of Adelaide.
That's right, about 20 k's out.
About 20 k's out of Adelaide. So now, Rod, what year is your Panther?
1938.
And its model is an M100?
M100, that's right.
And it's unrestored.
Basically unrestored, yeah. I did the tank in the colour scheme that I like.
Colour scheme, beautiful. Very pretty bike.
So, yeah.
And, Rod, why did you buy a BSA? Now, this is a story.
Well, we actually went to the guy's house to buy a BSA, and I saw the Panther under a tarp. So I did a deal and bought that as well as a 34 Triumph. And I left the BSA behind.
So how many bikes do you have?
19 or 20.
Wow, yeah, terrific. So also, what is F&N? P&N?
P&N. Phelon Moore.
And what does...
That, well, they were the forerunners to Panther, I presume.
Okay, yep. So what else have you got in the shed?
The earliest is 1904, which is a Humber Olympia tandem. So that's designed, the passenger sits in the front of the bike. So you've got dual wheels at the front, single behind. And originally they had, I think, it was either a 357 or a 405 P&M motor in them.
Really?
And,
that'd be fun sitting on the front.
yeah, I haven't tried it, but the wife does.
Does she?
Yeah, when we do displays.
Oh, fantastic.
I don't use it on the road as such, but I will do laps around ovals and whatever to entertain people.
Well, that's terrific. Yeah, really good. And it's lovely to meet you.
Yeah.
Hope you have a brilliant weekend.
Oh, I think so. Every weekend's a good weekend.
It is so.
Especially when it's Panther orientated.
And have you had this at another rally yet?
We had it 2 years ago in the South Australian McLaren Flat Rally.
Beauty. Yeah. So this is its second
outing.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, you have a great weekend, right?
Okay, thank you very much.
Cheers. Okay, this is Ian Sargent, and Ian's from Ararat.
Yep.
Ian, what sort of bike is this?
It's a
today?
1950 Panther 100, model 100.
Beautiful. And how many owners has this bike had?
3.
Oh, it's 3 owners.
Three,
and you're
yeah.
the third?
Yep, we're the third owner of from you.
Beautiful. So, it's usually, it's something about a Tilbrook?
Yeah, it usually has a double adult Tilbrook sidecar on it, but
Right.
they're just getting the bike sorted out again to get that sorted out back on it.
But isn't there a little story about Mr.
Oh, yeah, when Jeremy, our son, who's coming here later, was about 18 months old, we drove over and seen Rex Tilbrook at Victor Harbour. He was living at Whalers in there. And he took us up to his old workshop. He had this big old ledger with all the pages in it, with the chassis number 405 tied up on his ledger, that it was fitted to this bike.
Amazing.
I'm not sure, I forget what date it was.
Well,
but
he's
yeah.
probably looking on us,
Yeah,
is he?
yeah, he had it all there.
Yeah,
Pretty-
fantastic.
And then actually years later he tracked us down and come and stayed with us in Ararat and that. So
How wonderful.
he was an incredible man to listen to him talk and that, the stories he could tell,
Yeah.
things he told and that. So, yeah.
Fantastic. So now, before the kids came,
Yeah, we used to
I
ride.
believe you used to ride a lot.
We used to ride it everywhere. Now the kids ride it. So now the kids are grown up.
So don't have any kids if you want to stay riding forever.
That's right. I know we
Okay.
went through sort of a patch where kids growing up and employment jobs and all
Oh,
that. We
of
sort of
course.
pulled it apart. Then we've always kept it. You know.
So have you been to many rallies on this?
It's been to a few, yeah.
Yeah.
Not as many,
What's
so.
your favourite place on this that you've been? Can you say it?
Oh,
Don't say
no, just
Llanelly.
anywhere.
Don't say Llanelly.
No, we've I used to ride it down to Lake Goldsmith from Ararat when
good,
when the kids were born and that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the Warrnambool Classic rallies, that was back in the early 80s and that. We used to ride it to them when Jeremy was only about that big. And he's 30-something now. So.
4 months old when he went on his first ride.
Yeah, 4 months old.
Jenny, come over here. No, Jenny. We'll interview Jenny in just a moment.
Right.
Husband and wife team, this one. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Well, that's fabulous. And have a good weekend.
Yeah, we will. We
You
always
will.
do. Yeah. So thank you. No worries.
And with us today we have Jenny Sargent. She's the other side of Ian, I think. Now, Jenny, what are we riding today?
This is my 1929 AJS. It's a 350 side valve motorbike. I've had it for probably 8 years, and I've ridden it on. I couldn't tell you how many rallies over that time. We go, with the Antique Motorcycle Club, we go on a lot of rallies, a lot of one-day events, and then also here to Llanelly each year to the Girder Falls Rally.
Beautiful.
And have a great day. Yeah, great time.
So, how fast does it go, Jen?
It goes about 65 k's.
I heard that it wasn't fast enough.
Well, it's a hill detector, so going up hills it slows down incredibly, which is Jenny's not happy, I'd like it to go faster, but anyway, we can't make it.
Jenny, all your family ride, really, don't
Yeah,
they? The whole family.
Our 2 boys both ride, and both their partners ride, and our 3 granddaughters all ride motorbikes.
So between the lot of you have a lot of motorbikes.
We have a lot of motorbikes.
Is there anything in particular that you would rather ride?
No, this is my favourite bike.
Is this your favourite?
Yeah, I've got a Douglas, a 1918 Douglas, which I would have liked to ride it, but my legs are too short. I couldn't. If I could make it go myself, I would ride it. But you've got to be able to start and stop your bike properly.
Of course you do. Yeah.
Be safe.
Parking, all that.
Yeah, all those things. Yeah.
Oh well.
So I feel very comfortable on this. It's got a good set of brakes. Thank goodness.
That's very good. Yeah, that's wonderful.
I love it. Yeah,
well, you have a really, really good weekend.
I will.
And the kids are coming.
They are.
They are. What are the kids riding?
Daniel's riding a 1929 Panther.
Yep.
And Jeremy will be riding the 1930 Ariel, and his wife Jess will be riding the Scott, 1924 Scott.
Beautiful. Yeah, lovely. Well, you have a really good time.
We will.
Okay.
Thank
we'll
you.
catch you soon. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, we've got John Ferguson here from Greensborough. John, how are you today?
I'm very, very well.
And you're
I'm
impressed.
warm now.
And you're impressed with our beautiful club rooms?
I think your club rooms are spectacular.
They are. They're really great.
First time I've been here, and I'm really, really impressed. You're very lucky to have such a
So,
visit.
John, what are you riding today?
This is my 1938 Model 100 Deluxe Panther. I'm only its third owner from you. The guy I got it from managed to sneak it out of the deceased estate, so it's only ever actually had 2 riders in its lifetime. A Deluxe Panther, of course, is a massive contradiction in terms because, well, people expect Panthers are so cheap that if you didn't want to spend the money, or you had the money, you'd go up buy something better. But the deluxe package of this is the twin headlights, which are twist group operated, and
look at that!
So there's a left-hand twist grip which gives me low beam, and the rubber-mounted handlebars, the klaxon horn, the twin bezels, and the tail light.
So how long have you had it?
I've had it 31 years.
31 years, okay.
And as you can see, it's in original unrestored condition.
And so what was the story about when you went to UK? And
I bought it in the UK when I was there, and I didn't know what I'd bought at the time. It wasn't until I got it home that I realised I had a deluxe, and it's probably the only deluxe in the country.
Well, there you go. So is this your favourite bike in your shed?
Oh, that's a very difficult
I know
question.
it is. Very hard.
It depends what day it is.
So how many bikes do you think you've got in your shed?
Insufficient.
It never ends, does it? So is there any other story you'd like to tell us about this bike and sidecar in particular?
Well, the sidecar I've probably owned for 45 years or something. I bought it on a pre-unit Triumph, which was a horrible motorcycle. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. And I tried various other things before I decided that what I really needed was a Panther to haul my sidecar around.
Yeah, that's great. So
And
you're
finally
in
got
clubs.
Yes, now I've been a member of the Classic Club for probably close enough to 45 years.
Are you in the Panther Club?
And I'm in the Panther owners.
Yeah, fabulous.
And the Motor Guzzi owners.
Well, we hope you have a fantastic weekend.
I'm going to.
And thanks for coming.
That's my pleasure.
Fantastic. Cheers.
Yeah.
Well, here we are again. We have Shane Collison from Williamstown, who also happens to be in the Bendigo Club. Shane, what are you riding today?
1927 Big Port AJ.
Beautiful. And how long have you had this bike?
Well, only a couple of months.
And where did you get it from?
I bought it off Lee Goodall.
Okay, because Lee's got a few bikes. Yeah.
Sold a few bikes.
Yeah, yeah. And did you have much to do to it to get it ready for the rally?
Yeah, there's a few things I changed, really.
Yeah, what did you do?
Oh, I made all this, renew all this.
Yeah.
Board, made the intake, vent, that's all for here, made that.
So being in 1927, when they made it, was it for a special, anything special or?
Apparently they were brought out for the Isle of Man TT.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And are there many around?
It's the only one I've ever seen.
Okay.
I know Vince has got a 350. That's the only one I've seen, the one I've been as well.
Right. So you've got a few bikes in the shed, I believe.
Oh, a couple.
So is there a more favourite bike in the shed? What, you can't pick, can you?
No, because
Everyone's telling me
they're all
that.
gorgeous.
Well, everyone's telling me that, and the more you have, the better.
Yeah, you're right. Eating meaty, mighty, mate.
And is there anything else you'd like to tell us about it? Come on. No?
Fun to ride. Fun to ride.
Fun to ride.
Yes.
The hand change and everything.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you got any other hand change bikes?
Yeah, got one Harley, 3 Indians, a BMW,
He hasn't got many bikes, folks.
but this is hand change one. That's about in hand
That's
change.
about it.
In hand change ones. Yeah.
Yeah, so what's your favourite in-hand change ones?
They're all
They're all good, aren't they? Yeah, all right. Well, look, thanks very much, Shane, for coming.
No worries.
And hope you have a really good weekend.
I will.
All right, cheers.
Fridge is full.
Bridget. Oh, good on you, mate. Hi, Tony. This is Tony Matthews from Wood End.
How are you?
Now, Tony, what model is your bike?
64, model 120, 650.
Panther, and it's, where was it from?
England.
England.
Yeah, on eBay. I bought it on eBay.
He bought it on eBay in 2009. And have you had any problems with it?
No, I just put a new piston rings and got
Yep.
the mag dyno done up, that's about it.
Beautiful. So you're also in the Norton Club, I believe?
Yeah.
You've got Nortons in, obviously?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how many Nortons have you got?
Oh, a couple.
Just a couple, I bet. So how many other rallies have you been to?
Oh, quite a few. I do a few
On
with
this
it.
one.
Oh, only a few with these. All British a couple of times.
Okay.
Yeah. Once up at Beechworth, but I took a Norton because this wasn't running.
Yeah. So you like riding it, obviously?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice to ride.
Lazy big Harley. Look, well, Tommy Harley, really.
Any other stories you'd like to tell me about it?
No.
No?
She's just a...
Just a
Quite
lovely
a lot.
bike to ride.
Yeah.
Okay, well thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
you have a lovely weekend.
Thank you.
Morning, we're heading to Maldon. It's about 30k in. There's petrol in town, toilets, everything else. We're staying 2 hours in Maldon for lunch. At the top end of town is the steam railway. Anyone wants to go up there? There's a lookout tower and wander around the shops. We have 2 backup trailers and the maroon Ford out the front with the yellow Bendigo plates. That's the tail end Charlie. I think that's about all. Oh, Vince has a spare seat. Yes. In his closest, if anyone would like a terrifying ride in and out. There's some petrol. There is some petrol on the trailers.
How much time do you need after the marshals are gone?
Oh, just on the way out today. Just sort of 6 or 7 minutes.
Make it quick.
Sorry.
and push grip. And if you ever look at how you use the
Get a lot of series, not the series too. We all see great vehicles. Yeah. Change the climaxes.
On Saturday the 1st of September 2018 at Llanelly Hall. We're talking to Charlie Osterfield. Hi Charlie.
Hello Pam, how you going?
Charlie's from Wedderburn, Victoria. Charlie, tell us a little bit about your bike.
Right, it's a 1938 M100 600. Was bought from Pam's esteemed husband about 17 or 18 years ago. In fact, of which he's never forgiven me for.
No, he hasn't.
Yeah.
No.
One of the best motorbikes I've ever owned. Very original, very unmolested. I've only done relatively minor work to it, and it just keeps going on to the point that it's now known as Trusty.
Yeah. Well, so
officially known as Trusty. Yeah.
Trusty is the name of
Yep.
the bike.
Yeah.
Trusty.
Yep. Yeah.
So you go to a lot of rallies on the bike?
Nowhere near as many as I should.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. Too busy.
And
yeah?
you're a Norton man, I believe?
Well, Nortons and later Triumphs and that sort of stuff is my business. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And older bikes.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't get to go to enough events.
No.
You know? But I try and get the Panthers out and use them when I can. You know?
So have you got any good stories to tell us when you've been on it? Where, you know,
Oh, where does it end? Riding a rigid frame girder fork Panther. There's always a story involved. You know? Perhaps my Pam partner comments that when I'm riding it, she's horrified following me to rallies and that. She said there's usually more air under the seat and my backside at any given time. And I said to her, well, you ought to be where I am. You know? It's even scarier. You know? But I love the old thing. It's actually a fantastic motorbike. I do like riding it. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's great, Charlie.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No worries, Pam.
All right, you
Pleasure.
have a great day.
We will. Yes, we will. Thank you.
Thank you. This is David Lewis. He's from Sydney, and he's got a 1948 Panther. Go for it, David. There it is.
They're not that uncommon out here. I've always said if you bought every Panther in Australia, put them in a big pile here, most Panthers are post-World War II, late 40s, early 50s, when England had a big export drive. I've had this bike for 10, 15 years, bought it off a guy called Bob Duncan who lived down down east of Melbourne. I can't remember where, down Tyabb way.
Right.
It had a sidecar which I still got home. A year or two back I took the sidecar off just to see what it's like to ride solo, which much to my wife's dismay I left the sidecar off.
Did your wife ride on the back of the other bikes?
No, she, I've got a BSA at home which I bought new in 1971 and we did our courting on that BSA. So I've always kept it. But she doesn't, she likes being in the sidecar,
right,
but not riding. Not riding pigeon. So yeah, it's a bit shabby, but it goes quite well, and yeah, it's great fun.
What about the story of the chap overseas, the gentleman overseas who came over from England?
Well, as we were saying just a minute ago, the chairman of the worldwide Panther Owners Club, a guy called Tom Norman, he often talks about how the club is a big worldwide family, how it just brings so many different people together. And when we had the rally in Adelaide 2 years ago, where Mick and Jane, who you just spoke to, hosted it, Tom Norman and his wife and another guy called Graham Sherborne and his wife came out to Australia just because they could. They're only in the country for 12 days, flew into Melbourne, drove to Adelaide, attended the rally, drove up to Sydney, and we spent a bit of time with them on the Friday. Then they flew home.
How lovely to meet you.
It was just tremendous, and they just said, let's go to Australian Panther Rally. And then just last Friday week, I met Ian Fox, who's one of the does a lot of spare parts scheme for the club in England, and he was out here, so we had lunch with him. Again, someone who you've corresponded with over many years, and finally get to meet. So it's a big family. It really is, and it's just and there are many members in Australia, many in Europe. They have rallies all over the place in Europe. Not so much in the USA.
Have you been over there and been to a few of them?
No.
You have been?
I've been to the UK, but didn't really. My wife and I were there in 2007, and probably the highlight of my trip over there was to stand outside the old Panther factory in a little place called Cleckheaton in Yorkshire, near Leeds and Bradford. Yeah. And back then the factory was only about a year away from being demolished. It's not just too big.
What year was that?
2007. But the factory had been sort of derelict for many years and had been due for demolition to make way for a shopping centre, which is what happened. But I'd seen photos in a book of what it looked like, so I could stand there and just say, yeah, that's the office there, and my engines were assembled up there, and the bikes were assembled there, and they were road tested around these streets, and then they were exported halfway across the planet to Australia. But to stand outside the actual factory was like a pilgrimage. It sounds a bit soppy, but it was really. Wow. Yeah. And I recognised it from these photos I'd seen in the book, and it was just an amazing experience. And then 12 months later, it was all. I mean, by that stage, it was very derelict. Weeds and broken glass and fences and stuff around it, but.
You were there.
And I saw it. And that was just an amazing thing.
You're part of it.
Yeah.
Now, is there any other nice stories you've got?
Well,
before we go, how many other bikes have you got?
Well, I've got a 1923 Panther, which is an extremely rare bike. It's the first model that was actually called the Panther. Prior to that, the company was always Phelon Moore, and they were known as P&M. They made bikes for the Royal Flying Corps during World War I, as dispatch rider bikes. So and there's quite a few of them around because they were sort of reconditioned and sold on to the public after World War I. In 1923, they brought out this new sports model, although for 1923 it's actually very dated, and they for some reason called it a Panther. So that was the first actual Panther, and I've got one.
You've got one?
And I think there's only about 6 of that actual model that exist anywhere on the planet. So it's a very rare bike.
Very rare.
It's all restored, very original. I'm nearly finished restoring a 1932 500. I've got this, and I've got a 1951 350, which, if I may say, it and I appeared on the ABC show Australian Story 4 years ago, and I played an 18-year-old Bob Hawke on that show, because Bob Hawke, when he was about 18, owned a little 1947 350, like Jane's, one you saw at the back, Jane Clark's bike, and he had a very bad crash on it and nearly died. He hovered between life and death, for about a week, that close to dying. Anyway, when the ABC were making this Australian Story, they wanted to
recreate.
His accident was obviously an important part of his life. Also because his parents had lost Hawke's older brother. He'd died of meningitis. So his family came that close to losing their second son. He really lost one son. So the ABC got in contact with me, and in a place called Parramatta Park, which is near where I live, we spent about 3 or 4 hours one Friday filming. with cameras mounted on the tank and cameras mounted down here and on the ground like this guy. And me and my bike, I mean, no facial shots, obviously, so I don't look anything like an 18-year-old hawk. And I tried to get dressed up in old period gear. But me and my bike were actually on the show for 35 seconds. I thought 2 or 3 seconds, but 35 seconds?
That's a long time.
That's my claim to fame. I played a former, to be Prime Minister. So,
that's terrific, Jay.
Thank
It's
you.
really good to talk to you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, and you have a really good weekend.
Oh, we're looking forward to it.
Yes, you will. A lot of nice.
It's a great thing. I mean, just to record. Yeah. So very quickly, I mean, I started our Panther register, this group, back in 1981. It was a case of, I had Panthers, I was keen on Panthers, someone had to do it. So we now currently have, and it's been through a couple of incarnations over the years. You sort of do it for a while and you sort of lose interest. But it's been really good. This rally is probably, I'm guessing, maybe our 20th annual rally. So we've had rallies in Beechworth, a couple in Brisbane, Southern Highlands just south of Sydney, Swan Hill, the Bales.
Yes, I know
We've
the
hosted
Bales.
2 at Swan Hill.
Yep.
I can't remember, but all over the place. So this is probably maybe 20th rally. We've got about 100 members throughout the country. I do a newsletter every couple of months. It's very informal, the club. We're not affiliated with any official group.
Well, it's doing very well.
We have days out, weekends out like this.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, we have really keen people.
Well, anyway, you're certainly welcome to come back again.
I'll bring my 32 down one day.
You might have to come to the Singles Girder Combined Rally. We have that usually in about March or April, and that's a good day, good weekend.
I'll keep in touch with Paul.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
That's awesome.
We're back with Charlie Osterfield at the moment because we forgot his other bike that's here. Charlie, tell us all about
This is my other Panther that I own. It's a 1965 M120 650. Fairly rare by this stage Panther as a company who's in dire straits. They were actually in liquidation when this bike was made. Only 32 Panthers went to America in 1965 and this is one of them. A colleague of mine acquired it for me out of America and he had a hell's own job to find it. They're quite rare. It's pretty much as it was when I bought it, with a fair bit of fettling done to it to sort it out. It runs along quite nice. Completely different bike to ride other than my old bike. It covers the ground a lot better, obviously because of the better suspension, etc. But to be quite honest, the older machine's more fun to ride. It's still a nice motorcycle.
Yeah, well, that's great. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you. Okay, today we're with Michael Clark on a Saturday at the Llanelly Hall again at the Panther Rally. Now, Michael, what sort of bike? Michael, by the way, is from South Australia.
McLaren Vale, great part of the world. I bought this about 10 years ago. I've always wanted to own a Panther, and this opportunity came up. I found it in Mount Gambier. It originally had a sidecar on it, which is quite an unusual one. Not used to sidecars, but I decided to leave it on there, and I took it up to the rally in Redcliffe in Queensland, the first Panther rally we attended. Took both the bikes up, and had a rather unfortunate accident. And,
Jane's his wife, by the way.
Yeah, and ended up in hospital, crashed this up, and I didn't complete the rally. So it's been a bit of a determination since then. I've rebuilt it all the front end. And with 2016 we hosted the Panther Rally in McLaren Vale.
Fantastic.
And had the president of the Panther Owners Club in England come out, and I gave him my bike to ride, so I didn't actually ride it. So believe it or not, this is going to be the first rally I actually ride my own bike.
How fantastic.
So there you go. Having not finished the first one, but
and your wife's also riding
my
a
wife
Panther.
rides,
We'll
yes.
catch up with her later.
Catch up with her.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So you've got other Panthers, or?
I have. I've got a 1924 P&M, which is a rather beautiful motorcycle. That's a girder fork, obviously. So we might end up at the girder fork rally with that one maybe one year.
That'd be fantastic.
And I've got another M600, but it's 1939, and that's a girder fork. And that's in the throes of restoration at the moment. So I've got 4 of them, luckily.
Yeah, wow.
So,
You like your Panthers?
I love my Panthers.
He does love his Panthers.
So there you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for
And,
hosting the rally.
And
It's
we
great.
hope you have a really good weekend.
Well, so do we.
Yeah, cheers.
As long as I finish riding, it'll be great.
Thank you. Here we are again at Llanelly with Jane Clark, who's from McLaren Vale in South Australia, and Jane's riding a 1947 3-speed Panther. Jane, could you tell us a little bit more about
the Panther? Well, she's going.
Yeah.
Just.
And have you been to any rallies on
I didn't ride it at the last rally I went to because we had a little bit of problems with it.
Okay. And Jane, do you ride any other bikes?
I do.
And what do you ride?
404.
400.
Honda.
A Honda 404.
Sports.
Wow.
And Phantom D1.
Yeah.
C11. BSA C11.
Beautiful. So your husband, who we interviewed just
Okay,
before,
Mick,
Mick, he was telling us that you go to a few rallies together. So have you been to other rallies on this one?
No.
No. So this is your first one that you're actually
First
going to ride.
I'm riding it. Yeah.
How wonderful. So Jane, can you tell us anything else?
We go every Sunday. We ride every Sunday.
Oh, lovely.
Depending whether what we take.
Yeah, of course. Is there a strong club in South Australia for Panthers?
Oh, they've got the V&V club, which
Yeah.
we do ride with them every 2 months.
Oh, wonderful.
In fact, we had a rally last Sunday.
Oh, nice. Big one?
Yeah, pretty big. Yeah.
Oh, good. Good. Well, look, John, that's fabulous, and we hope you have a really good weekend.
We're going to.
Oh, you will. You will. And
It's going to
I
go
hope
all
you
the
love
way.
our schoolroom.
I love the whole setup.
Isn't it beautiful? And
Yeah.
we've had this now for 10 years.
Oh,
And it was,
that's
1868, I think.
okay.
Yeah, so we're very lucky to be
Yes,
custodians.
very
You are
lucky.
very
And
lucky.
here's the husband.
He's
Come
the-
on.
Yeah,
Also,
we've been
He's
there.
the fixer of everything.
He's
There you
the
go.
fixer. He's a fixer-upper. Oh, well, look, thanks so much, both
Pleasure.
of you, for coming.
Oh, thanks
Thanks
for
for having us.
And it's just
great.
wonderful.
We're coming back.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Gerda Fork
Gerda
will
Fork
come back.
Rally.
Oh,
That'll be
beautiful.
Right, today we have got Laurie and Suzanne Woody from Chesapeake Bay in Brisbane. And they were coming on a 1964 M120 Panther. Now, you continue the story of what happened.
Okay, the 120 Panther is a 650cc. I was riding it about 2 or 3 weeks ago and it's developed a noise in the bottom end, a banging noise, so we decided not to bring it down. I bought my K100 with the HRD sidecar on it instead to ride around at the rally.
So now, have you any other bikes?
I've got a 1987 K75, which is a 3-cylinder BMW.
And on your way down, did you have any incidents?
No, none at all.
Breakthrough?
Yep.
Yeah. Now, your sidecar, obviously, have you been enjoying? Yep. Yeah.
She's got to sit in there, she's my counterweight.
That's very nice. Now, about where you first met and what happened then.
I met him in Seymour at my sister's. Best friend of my brother-in-law. When he came courting to Deniliquin where I lived, one day he turned up on a 1937 Indian Scout.
Oh, really? So?
He took me for a ride on the little sponge on the back. He hit a bump and I ended up sitting on the number plate, nearly pulling him off the bike.
The Indian doesn't have any suspension on the back wheels.
So, Lauren, in Queensland, how is there a Panther club, a strong Panther club up there?
Nowhere near as strong down here. There's not a lot in Queensland. There is half a dozen that I know of, but they're all involved with the local clubs of the area. BHMCC, Queensland Historic Motorcycle Club.
So, but you do go on rallies on the Panther?
Yeah.
Fabulous. Have you got any other stories? Come on.
No, that's about it.
That's it? Well, listen, we hope You guys have a really, really good weekend.
Thank you very much.
And make sure you watch
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you. The Don Nicol sidecar rally is in honour of a chap who had an AJS with a Dustin Tilbrook sidecar on it, and he was prominent in forming a special sidecar rally.
Very good.
Sunday at the rally out at Llanelly for the Panther rally. We have David from South Australia on his 1909 Panther. Now, David, could you give us a rundown on it, please?
In 1902, Phelon and Rayner started building motorcycles, and Harry Rayner died. It was Phelon's nephew, and they took in another partner, Moore, and they changed the name to Phelon and Moore, and they started making chain drive motorcycles with the engine sloping forward as part of the frame, even from 1902, and they continued that design until 1966 when they finished. This one's 1909, it's as I found it. Someone had done it up years ago. It hasn't got the correct carburettor on it because they had a Panther's own carburettor, a VAP carburettor. So if I ever find one, I've got a VAP carburettor from the next year, but the next year had mechanical valves and the carburettor will not fit on this bike. So
anyone listening, look around.
It's got an atmospheric inlet valve, so it's not mechanically operated. It just relies on the vacuum that the piston produces, and atmospheric pressure pushes the valve open and it closes with a very weak spring. They're pretty hard to get going because if you have a strong spring, the bike will go fast, but it is really hard to start. And if you have a weak spring, it starts really easily, but doesn't go very fast. So you've got to have an in-between. But it's got 2-speed gear. You just push this lever into forward and expands 2 wedges. It's got 2 primary chains which have got 2 little clutch arrangements on, and you either engage one with these little brake shoes which are forced open with wedges, and then once you get going you pull it back into top gear and it wedges into the higher of the 2 drives, and this gets along at about 25 or 30 mile an hour comfortably on the road, 40 kilometres an hour.
So have you been to any other rallies on it?
Yeah, I took it to the Manham rally for the Veteran Car Club in May. It did 60 kilometres on that rally.
Fantastic.
And it went on the Ararat rally, and the first rally we had it going was at Parks, which was about 6 years ago.
Wow, they would have been rapt to see those.
Yeah, but these are exceedingly rare. They have got some value in England because you've got a 2-speed gear with a clutch, which makes them valuable for the Pioneer run for pre-14 bikes. And if you've got a belt drive with a single thing riding in modern traffic to Brighton, it's not the best of things to be in modern traffic. But
so,
I'll give it a go today. There's a 60 kilometre ride today. I might be a bit slow for them, but
doesn't matter. Back up, we'll wait. Now, is there anything else you'd like to tell us?
No, I just thought I'd bring it on the Panther rally as an eye candy for the Panther people to see.
That's beautiful.
Panther didn't start calling the motorcycles Panther until 1924-25, and before that they were all known as P&M, which stands for Phelon and Moore, the partners in the business.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you so much, and I hope you get there today.
So do I.
Yeah. Llanelly Hall on Sunday, Father's Day 2018, and here are all the Panthers lined up out the front of the old Llanelly School, which is 1882. The Bendigo Historic Motorcycle Club has taken this on, and we're looking after it. It is Father's Day. And so they've all had a wonderful time, and we hope that everyone will come back in the near future just for good fun. Good motorcycling forever.
Good evening. Well, probably is evening somewhere. Good evening and greetings from the Panther Owners Club here in the UK. Graham Sherborne and I, together with our wives, had the pleasure of attending the 2016 Australian Panther Gathering. The hospitality and friendliness we were shown is something we will never forget. We would very much like to have joined you again, but although the world is undoubtedly shrinking, I'm afraid it hasn't shrunk that much, for this year at least. We Brits maybe have a bit of an insular attitude and maybe like to think we are the centre of the world, and this is just as true in the Panther world as elsewhere. I find it therefore very pleasing to see that all over the world there are other communities of dedicated Panther owners, and your great continent is no exception. Despite the immense distances to European eyes, you have a vibrant, supportive community with some beautiful machines. I know that many of you are POC members. All of our overseas members are very important to the POC, and that has been demonstrated this year when two of our major trophies, the Audrey Ellis Trophy and the Brian and Margaret J. Unsung Hero Award, have both gone down under. And he says, I hope David will be able to share the nominations with you. Anyway, that's enough for me. Time for you guys to get down to some serious drinking. Early. Best wishes, Tom Norman. I'm not sure what the Audrey Ellis Trophy was awarded for, but that went, it's just a little medal and a certificate. That went to what's his name? Graham, Bruce Sharman, sorry. Bruce Sharman, who lives in a place called 2J, which is about 90 kilometres out of Perth. There you go. He rode last year as part of the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. He rode his 1948 600 from Perth to Sydney, all the way with air in the Dowdy Forks. I had the great pleasure of taking my bike out to Bathurst on the last Friday and riding into Sydney with him, and riding my bike across the Sydney Harbour Bridge was a first for me, and wonderful experience. And I must say, without wanting to beat my own drum too much, the Unsung Hero Award trophy went to myself. So. That was really nice and really appreciated.
The marshals will head off in about 5 or 6 minutes and follow just 10 minutes behind. We're heading into Inglewood, which is 18k away. There is fuel just out of town, past where we stop, if you need some. We'll stay there for about 30 minutes, and then we're heading to Melville Caves. That's about another 12, 13k further on.
Get out of your way.
right on this bloody Sunday starting.